there were few chefs who were sitting around me, and after the ceremony, he said, "Come down, man," because they see me just shaking my legs, and bit of sweat coming down my ears. So it was it was not easy, man. I think you were saying great things about the restaurant, but there were days where we've literally done 0 covers for a weekend. Literally none. Like we were just standing there, So of course we have seen, even though there was recognition from the journalists, from the publications and everything, but we still struggled to see good days in terms of the business. You must do business to survive the restaurant. Because back in India, I've seen like a really fat guy was sitting on the chair, and the chair was just collapsed.
My gosh.
The next day we had a guest who is one of the most richest families in India. I would not name. Very VIP, and he was sitting in that chair, one of those chairs, and for throughout 2 hours we were just praying to God, please hold it on. If this breaks, then probably the restaurant will break too.
Yeah. Wow. Himanshu, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the Chef JKP podcast. It's an absolute honor to have you on here. I know that you're super busy with so many different projects, especially with Trèsind Studio and with everything that you're doing. So really, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. It's always this one thing which I always wanted to be part of, because I know I'm a big fan of yours. You don't know that, but in India there's a thing called Coffee with Karan. It's a chat show. And it's a show where this guy, a big movie director, producer, invites the Bollywood celebrities, and they sit on the couch and there's a questioning happening, and it's witty, it's hilarious, it's entertaining. So, and every Bollywood star wants to be on that show, So it's just like me, wanted to be in this show forever, man.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, buddy. So as I understand it, your official title is corporate chef for Passion F&B, but you're far more than a corporate chef. You're not a corporate chef. For me, you're a hands-on chef, I would say. But before we get onto any of that, can you tell me, first of all, about your childhood? What was the type of food? How did you get into food in the first place?
Yeah. No, I always have this very interesting story. Back in the day, my mother's parents, my grandparents, they used to live in a very big house, and my grandfather and his brothers, wives, children. So it's like a big complex family of almost 50 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's a big house. Imagine you have to prepare 3 meals for 50 people every day. So the kitchen which used to be like any other professional kitchen, I can remember of that. Every of my aunt used to get a specific job, and that's her job throughout the day. If somebody's job is to knead the dough for the bread, they would do it every day. Somebody's job is to do the dishes, or somebody's job is to grind the spices, because back in the day you have to do it yourself
by hand,
by pounding it and by drying it and stuff like that. So everybody has a job to do, and it's the grandmother who comes with the final tempering, and so it used to be like a professionally run kitchen, like a mini banquet kitchen. And I used to be mama's boy, so always used to follow her in the kitchen, used to spend time with her, even though I didn't understand that much of cooking during those days. But it just has some kind of association, some things I remember, it's just stuck in my head from those days. And the other important thing which got me into cooking is just that I was not good at anything else. I was very average in studies. The sports was one of the options which I wanted to pursue, but back in the day, the parents, they don't see it as a secured job, so they never allow us to pursue in sports. So as I said, I have never given myself any other option. The first entrance exam after school was for the hospitality program, and I clicked, I got the admission, and then there's nothing else I've applied for. There's nothing There's no other college I thought of filling up the form for. So everything happened very organically. But I come from Delhi, and especially from Old Delhi, which is like a food paradise. So even though the house used to make amazing dishes, food, but it's the street food also which we've grown up on. It's amazing kebab places or the street food or the pani puris. So even though the 3 meals used to be in the house, the snacks, the breakfast, the early breakfast, and the midday things used to be everything from the streets. You just go out and.
So tell me about, let's say, when you were in school.
Yeah.
And then after school you'd sneak off. What were the types of street food that you would have?
I have this memory of, there's a place in Old Delhi, it's called Changezi chicken Changezi. And they used to do the chicken with a dry curry, like a dry masala,
right,
on the flat tawa, like on the flat pan, very big. And they used to serve the rumali rotis, the very thin bread. So what my father used to do is that we used to take our own 150 grams of butter. We used to take the butter to that shop and ask them to prepare the one portion in just 150 grams of butter,
Nice.
So there are few memories like this, Even the way the vendors used to plan how they set up the station or their shops or the kiosk. It's just so amazing that there's one place which used to sell pani puri and the safe puri and the pav bhaji, which is like very hot and spicy. And the next shop used to be a very amazing, very 100-year-old ice cream shop. And the other shop used to be like a soda shop. So imagine if you are going to that one shop, you have to go to the other one, and you have to go to the other one, and you have to go to the other one. So you are not just eating one dish. When you eat one dish, you have to just follow the trail and just do a bit of everything, while going back.
But it does sound like a paradise, really.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. And the smells and the tastes and the flavors must have been incredible.
Yeah.
So then when you thought, right, okay, I'm going to go to hotel school.
Yeah.
Tell me about that process.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you went into that college?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you go into food and beverage, or was it straight into culinary?
No, it's a hotel management program. So of course it's not just the culinary arts we're going to learn. It's a bit of everything. F&B service, housekeeping, front of the house, reservations, accounting, hotel accounting, everything was there in my 3-year degree program. And of course, I've always given a shot to everything, be it bartending or the cocktail or F&B service, wines. I was into it in my college because it was very cool to talk about wines and alcohol at that age where I was not even having any of those things.
Yes.
But it just intrigues me because we are tasting and everything.
Right.
And the first year of the school is usually the French basics,
okay.
which you've been taught, mother sauces and everything, which was very boring for us because it just first time I've never tasted anything like a hollandaise before in my life. 17 years before, there was no existence of any such things in our lives. So it was very interesting to have to be learning all these techniques which were not really fascinating us. In the second year program, when we got into the Indian kitchen, that's where my interest started to come in. I don't know, it was very organic, but I always used to tell it to myself that being an Indian, I think I can only be the best Indian chef, because if I have to be a best of any other cuisine, you have to be living in that country, doing that.
Right.
You have to feel it, be
Sure.
part of the journey. Because any guy who spent 18 years in France would always already be ahead of us if I have to pursue something in the French genre, for example.
Of course.
So I always used to tell myself that if I have to do cooking, it's probably Indian, which I always want to pursue. But back in the day, Indian food was not very cool. There was no progressive Indian restaurants at that point of time.
Right.
So Indian food was very traditional, was very ethnic in terms of how it's being served. Also, it's a bit boring, heavy, greasy, spicy. So it doesn't have that values what we have for our cuisine at this point of time. But in my head, it was very clear that if I do take up cooking as a profession, I'll pursue in Indian cuisine.
But it must have been quite interesting. I'm just thinking from a taste perspective that throughout your life as a child
Yeah.
up until 17.
Yeah.
You had all these explosion of spices and all
Yeah.
of this
Yeah.
amazing smells on food. And then you taste the mother sauces, which
Yeah.
are the traditional French sauces, and just bland.
Yeah, delicate.
Yeah, you know, because yes, of course, as a chef, you have to know the base.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it just purely from a palate perspective, it must have just been quite a shock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're so surrounded by this incredible and wonderful food and smells and
Yeah.
taste, and then you make this bang, and then it's done.
Yeah.
So okay, and then look, what happened? What was your first foray into a professional kitchen? When was it that you actually really stepped into a professional kitchen after your degree?
Yeah, it's the first time of course, we've got the campus placement and everything. I got cleared with this company called Old World Hospitality, which has many restaurants back in the day. Some restaurants in London, in Delhi, some are in hotels, some are standalone. So they had like 18 F&B outlets at that point of time, and I got hired for a executive training program where all the chefs in my group, for 18 months we spend 1 month in every kitchen.
Oh wow.
And then the executive chef decide, when he sits with you, that which outlet suits you or which chefs really want you to be in his kitchen, and then he decides where you spend your professional career
Right.
doing. So I started my training program. I was doing one kitchen, then next kitchen, then next kitchen, then next kitchen, and then I entered in a kitchen which was called 77 restaurant. It was in Manor Hotel in Delhi, which is a small boutique hotel, just 15 rooms, very beautiful. And then I had Chef Manish, who was in London, the same group, running Tamarai and Oriental Octopus. He's come in for the first time to Delhi to do the trials for Indian Accent. One of the first progressive modern Indian restaurant, which was in loading at that point of time. So, and I happened to be in that kitchen when he came to do his trials, all by, it was pure luck, you know. And then he did the trials. The trials were successful. Of course, we helped him with whatever we have for him, but mostly it's him telling us what to do, what not to do. And then he went back, and then the restaurant was scheduled to open after 2 months. And then I started doing my regular training program. But when he came back to open the restaurant, he said, I need the same team which helped me out in my trials. And that was the best thing which would have happened in my career. My executive chef said that there is no training program for you anymore. You have to be working with Chef Manish in Indian Accent. And it cannot be anything better than that. The other restaurants were decent, okay restaurant, but the amount of learning I had at Indian Accent, it is incomparable, man. It can't be compared. Other restaurants were different league. Indian Accent, they wanted to make their flagship restaurant, invested so much money, brought the chef, especially from London, from the other of their group restaurants. So the whole company invested so much in this project. So, and the team which Chef Manish built was probably the best from all the group. He just said, I need the best guy doing tandoor. I need the best guy doing curry. I need the best guy who's in pastry. I need the best guy. So he just get together the best of the best team. And of course, me and one of the trainee friends, we were the younger ones in the group. So we were just helping around in the kitchen at that point of time.
And imagine how much knowledge you soaked up.
Yeah. It was, I've seen I started to see how different ingredients can value more the Indian food. So umeboshi or ito togarashi or many things, even passion fruit I've never seen in my life before. So it's just an exposure to a bundle of ingredients, cooking style, technique. I didn't know what braising is all about. Of course, this bit happened in the college, but you've never done it with pork or something like that. Right. So I've never seen pork belly in my life before. So, and you don't expect to see ribs or belly. Back in the day, I'm talking about 2008.
Okay.
To see such ingredients in Indian pink pepper, for example, I've never seen it before. So it's probably I was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time.
Wow. So how long were you there for?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
So you must have seen so many things and the dishes and the change and all of that sort of thing.
So from trainee, in 5 years, I left as a sous chef.
Wow.
which is also, I think it's a big deal, man.
Well, absolutely. And so young.
Yeah.
That-
So when I was 24, I was a sous chef.
So what happened when you left?
I left because of many reasons. It's just first time. I never had a relationship before till I was 24, 25, and it's first time I get into a relationship with which is my wife now, and that's my first relationship. So of course I was I always used to give in 15 hours at work, 14 hours at work, and then Chef Manish saw that I have this new girlfriend, so I'm not focusing 100% on the job. So he used to give me a lot of stake,
Right.
At one point of time, he stopped talking with me, and he said there is a bit of disconnect with him and me, and because it's been 5 years, so I expect him to take care of me more, and he expect me to give even more because the restaurant was at that point of time, going great guns,
Right.
So there was a bit of a disconnect, and then it was first time Indian Accent was doing an event outside of India in Florence in Italy. And at that age also I've never traveled out of India. I've always been in India, never sat on an airplane also. So I was so much into my daily job and stuff like that. So never got really time to go out for a vacation, even to Mumbai, for example. So I was expecting to see myself on the list of chefs going to Florence. But of course I was not. He didn't. He just removed me from the list, and that just triggers me. I said it was
that was tough.
It sounds easy, but it was a lot to take on. And at that moment, I decided that it's time. Yeah.
So what? So when you left, did you go to another job, or did you manage to take some time off?
No, I straight away went to another job. In Mumbai, there was a new modern Indian restaurant opening called Masala Library, which seems like an interesting project. I was hired as a senior sous chef, but when we started doing trials and everything, the boss said, "It's you." There was executive chef, and my boss said, "No, we have probably other restaurants for him to do." So being a senior sous chef, straight away, I just started to head the kitchen along with another friend of mine, which I asked to join from Indian Accent itself. So both of us started the place on our own. So that's one of the things which I always don't know if it's good or bad, but it's just 5 years I have worked under a chef. So all my learning under a chef was at Indian Accent only. After that, I was pretty much on my own. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but
and do you remember your management style when you started at Masala Library?
Yes.
How was it?
It was. I always thought Chef Manish has a bad temper, and it's for good, because when so much is at stake, his name was at stake in that restaurant. So I realize it now that he was absolutely okay to give us back, whenever we were not doing the right things. But then, and I realized it as soon as possible, I started to do my own thing, the thing which sometimes I remember him cursing me for certain things, and I remember just 2 months later, I'm doing the same stuff. So you see how people are at different position with the expectations and the pressure and everything makes a big difference. But I was like a mad dog.
Okay.
Because there was so much to prove, new job, and of course Chef Manish and everyone around the industry had an eye on the restaurant, that how it's going to do, because in Indian Accent was Delhi and Masala Library was one of the first modern Indian in Mumbai. So there has to be comparison.
Of course.
So even though I didn't want it, just straight away people started to compare. There are certain dishes which are inspired, this and that. But of course, it's my first job. Was at Indian Accent. There is, of course, going to be influences. I've never done cooking under any other chef. So it was, of course, his hand on my head, which is making me cook certain things his style, maybe his way, organically or unorganically, But
and then, how long did you stay there for?
2 years.
And during that time, there must have been a progression of dishes, and you began to do your own style of things.
Yeah.
And things
I
settled.
think still, I would say I was in Masala Library. I was not lot under the influence of Indian accent, and I can't blame it on myself. I think it was very natural, as I said, to have certain influences because you have not seen enough world.
Of course, and that was your first mentor. And,
yeah.
You know.
And I've not traveled enough. I have not eaten enough in good restaurants. So there's very little scope of evolution, at that point of time. And then with the same group of Masala Library, I came back to Delhi and opened Farzi Cafe, which was the first. It's in Dubai also.
Yes.
It's in Doha. It's in many places now. But the first one, the concept and everything was done by me in 2014. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to get to now.
Yeah.
So in 2014,
Yeah.
you had a choice
Yeah.
to go to New York City,
Yeah.
was in your eyes,
Yes.
and Dubai.
Yes.
And luckily for us,
Yeah.
you chose Dubai.
Yeah.
So what happened? What made you choose Dubai?
I always say it's not me. I didn't choose Dubai. It's the city which just puts the hands on me, I think. But the city has so much of great energy, positivity. I think it's probably the best melting pot in the world right now. Everybody passes from Dubai, and I think I can't be more lucky. I think this touchwood, the luck is always around my soul. So I'm not jinxing it, but I think if I never go to New York, I would never come to Dubai. It's like that. My route to Dubai was via New York. So you have to see something from far and understand. I always thought New York is New York. It's people's. It's a big apple.
People's dreams.
People's dream, yeah. And I got like a 3-year H1B visa. I could have lived there forever, got a passport, That's what many people want from India, to go and settle in a place like New York. But things didn't work at all from day one. Everything, my dreams were into pieces every day. It is like that. I think the life is too fast there. I think people don't really nice to each other, especially with Indians. I think within first few days, I realized that you have to think before you talk to someone, or else you get it back from them.
Right.
In many sense. And even the restaurant which I was working for, I will not name the restaurant, but it was like a very badly run restaurant. I remember the first day of my kitchen, there were 5 chefs in the kitchen. They sacked 2 chefs because I was becoming part of the system, so they were paying me more to balance the book. They said 2 chefs have to leave. So I was left with 3 chefs. Out of those 3 chefs, 2 chefs are Mexicans, and they don't know how to speak English also. Imagining how would I work with them.
And you were running this place.
I was running this place. And the first thing I did is to rectify a few things which was not going right in the restaurant, certain recipe, certain standard dishes. I just changed it from day one because it didn't feel right. And then the owner came in and said, "How dare you change my recipes? It's my recipes, you have to run it through me." I said, "Sorry to say, it's your recipe, but they're not. I would not serve it to any guest. And if I'm in charge of this place, I cannot." So there was a bit of back and forth. They didn't pay me for 3 weeks. Usually it's the weekly wages.
Yes.
They just didn't pay me for 3 weeks. So, and I had to pay for my house rent. I've paid advance. The first day I landed in Dubai, I just paid 3 months advance. And I did some shopping and everything, but then there is no money, expecting there would be wages coming in. So 1 month was enough for me. I think
So that must have been quite tough because you're not only away from your family and friends, but you're in a completely new place. You thought this is going to be incredible. And then the harsh reality is, this is not for me.
No.
When you landed in Dubai, how did you land the job? How did you know this was your place?
No, so before leaving for New York, Mr. Nath, just one day before, he called me, the MD of Passion F&B. He called me, he said, there are so many people here in Trèsind. Was at soft opening phase at that time. He said, everybody says great things about you. We've only met once. He came to eat in Masala Library back in the day. And he said, we only met once. I would not ask you to leave the job and come to Dubai. But he said, I am there for you. If any day you need me, just give me a call and then we'll make it happen.
Okay.
He just said this thing to
Amazing.
be like a gentleman. He never said, I'll give you more money, come please, this and that. No, he just straight away said, whenever you need me, I'm there. Just give me a call. And that's what I remember. In 1 month, I just picked up a phone, give him a call. I said, is that job still available for me? He said, we'll talk about it later. I'm sending you ticket tomorrow. Just come.
What a legend.
So I never asked him, what position, what is my salary, what is this restaurant. I never asked anything. I just followed the gut feeling.
Incredible.
And I just took a flight, landed in Dubai. When I landed in Dubai, I remember for a brief second, for like 2 seconds, when I was passing from the airport road, and I was like, should I take a flight and go back? So
Of course, no, you're nervous.
It is not a daily decision. It's something
life-changing.
It can be life-changing, and I don't know if I've done good for myself or not. I can say probably after 10, 15 more years that was it a good decision or was it not a good decision. You never know. Maybe life can take you back to New York again. So I never say no. I realize it from my stint with Dubai and with New York. I always used to say, probably never come to Dubai, but I now say probably never go to New York. So life is full of surprises.
Of course.
So,
but look, New York's loss is Dubai's gain, because now you got given this job. Carnival by Trèsind, I believe, was the first one.
Well, Trèsind was the first. Yeah.
So the concept came up.
Yeah.
How was that project when you first started?
No, when I joined Trèsind, there was another chef who was running the soft launch. But the feedback was not really great with the friends and the family and the few media invites they have done. So Mr. Nath was looking for a change, and I came in, and then he asked the chef who was there that, and that chef who was running Trèsind was an Indian chef, but worked his life in UK, and it was his first experience with Indian restaurants, so it was more European than it was Indian.
Right.
And I've always worked in an Indian restaurant. So Mr. Nath asked, maybe I think two of you can run it together in a better way, because you have a better understanding of a European angle, and Himanshu can take care of the Indian part of it.
Okay.
And it can be blended together, in terms of how it's being plated or the elements on the plate. But he said, he would rather leave than work with me. He was not a big fan of me.
Well, okay. So that guy left.
That guy left on 28th of October, and 12th of November was already a launch date announced for Trèsind restaurant. So within those 10-12 days, I revamped the whole menu. All the chefs in the kitchen was hired by him, so they were not really pro me. I was doing it all by myself. Had to grind myself to, get the support from the guys during those days. And many of them are still with me. And I still give them sticks sometimes,
Very good.
Oh, you were not there when I needed you.
So then Trèsind becomes a household name.
Yeah.
Because the food is incredible. The service is fantastic. Then Carnival by Trèsind opens.
Yeah.
And you also have the catering at the same time, correct?
Yes.
So that must have been quite tricky to manage, because you're not from a hotel executive chef background, so that must have been your first foray into managing sort of different projects.
Yeah.
Because also, knowing you like to be hands-on on everything, and it's tricky to be here, there, and everywhere at the same time. But the one thing that stood out for me was when you had Carnival by Trèsind. I remember going to an invite, and there were toys everywhere, and there was food in the toys and all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, me and my wife were like, oh my God, what is this place? And it wasn't so much about the toys and all of that kind of cool stuff, which blew me away.
Yeah.
But it was about the taste and the flavors of that food.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this guy is going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it was very inventive. Can you tell me about that time?
I think it's a very tricky phase, and of course, I am one of those people who wants to do it and realize, then not do it, and I just want to try everything, even if I fail, so be it. And that was my thought process during those days. And of course, there are many things which I'm not really proud of. But it's just that I'm happy that I have done it. It's just out of me now. So it was, when we opened Carnival and Trèsind already existed, we always saw Carnival as a fun place, as a place where, with Indian food, you've always associated hospitality is there, but it's slow and it's a little boring, and the music is not to that, is not adding to the environment of the restaurant. So we just wanted to have one place in the IFC which is for everyone. It's just good food, and people can have. So probably the idea in my head is to make a more elevated version of Farzi Cafe, because Farzi Cafe was back in the day one of the first modern Indian bistros, and Carnival had a greater vibe than that, because the place was licensed and the bar was amazing, and the restaurant was amazing. We used to do seasons in Carnival. Every 3 months we launch a season. When we launch a season, we of course try to change a bit of the aesthetics in the restaurant to match with the menu. So we've done so much of it. It was so fun. The whole process was so much fun that every 3 months all of the chefs, we used to sit together and brainstorm, and then what we do, what season are we going to do, how are we going to do it, what things we're going to bring in, how the menu is going to look like. So had so much fun doing that.
Because I think that was for me the turning point, where you were allowed to do your things, start to work with the team quite closely, and then the magic came with Trèsind Studio.
Yes.
Now, Trèsind Studio, for Dubai standards, anyone who's dined in Dubai, they know that most restaurants are quite large.
Yeah.
There was never really been a small restaurant of 20 seats with the kind of tasting menu that you were doing.
Yeah.
When you first opened, how did the crowd react to it?
No, before I began to say about studio, I think I just want to mention Mr. Nath, the owner of the business, because even in Carnival, even in Trèsind, he has given me full support. It just from day one, he's never questioned. I think he has seen my intention, my passion for this genre, and he's always been supportive. And I think I've never seen a boss like him. I hope he listens to this podcast later on. But he's been very supportive, and every time we used to do a season at Carnival also, he just there, do it. Otherwise, people can have a lot of reservations about it. Why are you spending so much money? Why are you changing the menu if the menu is doing good? But it's just time just to keep ourselves pushing and pushing and pushing. Every time, 3 months, we used to do a menu. We say, okay, what's next? We are comfortable now, so we change the menu.
Amazing.
We change the season. So I think from all of this, from Trèsind to Carnival, and it's been 4 or 5 years in Dubai at that point of time, and all the energy was brought into studio. That's the one of the concept which I've discussed with Mr. Nath, always wanted to do, and we try to make this as small as possible, because we never really know at that point of time whether it's going to work or not, because we've seen enough of Dubai businesses, how it runs and what people want. So of course everybody wants a bit of nightlife with the restaurant, and studio was like a 2.5 hour experience. When we decided to do the menu, of course the spirits were really high in the group, and it was amazing reaction. From first 2 months, we were really enjoying what we were doing. We saw some finesse coming into the picture, but when you're doing for 20 people and it's just a small room, you can see the guests, you can see the reaction, you can see how people are responding. And of course we started doing that khichdi dish first time at the counter of the restaurant, which was breakthrough. I think there is so much of news just because of that dish, and it's still going strong, not in studio, in other restaurants now. So it was probably the best decision, and I think it was also a perfect place to experiment, the back room of the Trèsind restaurant, to see if something of this has value in Dubai.
And how long were you in that particular site for?
almost 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
So within that 4 years, what I saw is global recognition. So you have journalists upon bloggers, not just from Dubai, but globally, from the UK, from the US, all talking about Trèsind Studio. And there was a big buzz because for years and years and years and years, we'd all been talking about Michelin and top 50 best and getting recognized. So finally now we have an incredible homegrown chef here in Dubai who's doing these incredible tasting menus. You were there for 4 years and then you moved across to St. Regis in the Palm, right?
Yeah.
So then Go Milo and 50 Best came.
Yeah.
Of course, you were recognized. It was incredible and we all, recognized. And finally, we stood up and said, finally, because, you and your team really deserve it. But what I really want to know is the day that Michelin called you to say you received your first star.
No, they never do that.
They didn't call you?
No. So
What did
they just send you an email which says that you are part of the Michelin guide.
So they didn't call?
No, they
Okay,
never.
okay.
It doesn't happen that way.
Okay.
Probably those days where email was not part of the daily scene, but we only get an email saying that you are part of the guide.
Okay.
So he doesn't even know whether you are just part of the guide or you're getting a star.
So you didn't know?
So when I was sitting in the hall, I was literally, shaking, trembling, all sweaty. I was not aware that we are going to receive a star or not. No.
So before they even announced anything, you had no clue.
No clue, man. Like literally, I was saying, there were few chefs who were sitting around me, and after the ceremony, he said, "Come down, man," because they see me just shaking my legs, and a bit of sweat coming down my ears. So it was, it was not easy, man. I think.
Wow.
And I think by doing most of the time, last year everything came in together.
Yes.
Mina's 50 Best, Gomio, Michelin Guide. And I think I was talking to many of the chefs, and I think it was tough because all of that happened February. In 6 months, 3 biggest of the publications who can
make or break you.
Is launching its first guide or first edition. And it was just too much to take. I think the pressure was so much last year that from January onwards or February onwards, when we got to know, it was scary. Every time we were sitting in any of it just made us nervous. And I remember especially the Michelin one, and Michelin one, you're seeing many restaurants who you expect to get a star and they are just mentioned, For example, I think many restaurants which you think of a very, very famous 3-star chef in Europe. You're expecting him to get a star and he's just mentioned, so it was tough, man. But I think last year has made us, we try to make peace with that situation, and I think now we just go in with happy faces. The pressure is there, but it's a different kind of pressure than the last year. Last year was scary, nervous pressure, because I think it's very important I'm not just saying to make myself a bigger name or to satisfy my ego, but I think it's very important to get the right people in. And that's the whole point of Michelin Guide. I've seen after the guide, there are so many diverse people who are passing from Dubai, traveling to Dubai for vacation or for entertainment. They're coming to our restaurant, and that was not the case before. Even in the old place, you were saying great things about the restaurant, but there were days where we've literally done 0 covers for a weekend. Literally none. Like we were just standing there, thinking if any of the guests from main Trèsind would decide to come into the restaurant. So of course we have seen, even though there was recognition from the journalists, from the publications and everything, but we still struggle to see good days in terms of the business. You must do business to survive the restaurant. And even when we moved to a newer place, we felt a lot of support was there, but we didn't see, the flush of reservations. And we saw after all of these happened at the same time, especially the Michelin guide, and it just brings in the right kind of people who want to experience this kind of food. In Europe, there is more value for such restaurants which are small and which is you can make a conversation there, you can have a date night, you can see the kitchen, and there's of course a lot of information. So you need a lot of concentration to actually eat at studio, I think. But I feel that love after Michelin guide, in terms of the people walking into the restaurant.
But how did you feel after the initial nerves of getting on that stage, putting on the jacket?
Hard to realize, man. James, it's been a journey. Never imagined that I would live for this day. And I always say, last year also people kept on saying 2 stars, 2 stars, 2 stars. And I think so we were not ready for 2 stars. 2 stars, it's bigger responsibility, man. And I always prefer people saying that, you have 1 star and people say you deserve 2 star, then you have 2 star and people say,
right,
you don't deserve to get 2 stars.
Yeah.
So I am like that. Even this time around, I would not go with that nervousness I was going in from last time. I'm going to go very happy, satisfied that Michelin has given us a different life with different guests coming into our restaurant, and different importance also in terms of globally how people see the restaurant now is very different. So I think it's going to come someday or the other. Can be this year, cannot be this year, maybe next year, maybe next to next year.
Okay.
Who knows? But I'm very happy that even part of the guide means a lot, which means that we still get a lot of like-minded people who appreciate this kind of experience.
But look, you were touching on earlier, with Michelin, with Gomelo, with all of these big publications, there comes a certain amount of pressure.
Yes.
And there comes a certain amount of mental health.
Yes.
Now, certainly, when I've worked in the Michelin game and different places, I've felt the pressure myself. How do you deal with that?
I think I'm in that phase where I'm finding it difficult, not with the restaurant, but everything which is happening around the restaurant. Now, of course, there are a lot of people who look up to me and, and they say, okay, he has to be part of this event, for example, so they're kind enough to send me an invite, or there's an interview opportunity, or there is a telephonic conversation, there is invitation for a 4-hands dinner. So even though the restaurant was always the priority, somehow I'm just confused between which direction to go. I don't want to say no to everything, and then what kind of a person I am. I just want to be peaceful with everyone in terms of. But sometimes people also must realize, that how. I would not say there are many people who just chase you on, and it's just difficult to say no. So you're stuck somewhere between the road, and you don't know which way to go. So it just brings in a lot of uncertainty every time when I see my phone with so many emails, with so many calls happening in the day. Of course, we have many other restaurants also. So you doesn't get really that much time to think about, myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, absolutely. Because look, again, knowing you the way I do, I know that you are really hands-on and you want to purely focus on the team and the food.
Yeah.
And you want to keep developing. You're one of those people who wants to naturally keep developing and developing and developing, and then being pulled apart with press, with projects, this, that, and the other, and it's difficult for you to really focus in on what you really want to do. So I can imagine that's quite challenging, and again, to be a kind of group executive chef takes a certain skill set because you have to have the right people in place in the teams and that sort of thing. But I can understand it takes a strain on you.
Yeah.
But do you have where do you go to relax, for example? Is it going to watch Man U?
Yes, of course. That's the only thing which can. That's one thing which can pull me out. That's the only thing which can pull me out. Of course, family.
Yes, of course.
I'm talking about the personal.
Yeah, from your personal point of view, what is it that you do for yourself to zone out for a little bit?
We have a Man United supporters club, which I'm part of, and so every match day, I just go in and just have made some friends. Especially after Michelin, I've made more friends.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
They call me
the players themselves.
They call me Himanshu Michelin. You know,
nice.
That's my name on the supporters club.
Amazing.
So, you know, but going back to the point we were discussing about before, of course, football takes me on a different zone. It just makes me forget everything, and but I have my conservation about this thing is that why. Sometimes I feel people like to praise a famous name. That's always which I felt, you know, that why can't that support be given before, you know, how you scout a talent in terms of football, you know. I think we need more of that acceptance with upcoming chefs also, because it just prepares them, you know. Suddenly, if someone becomes someone, you see everyone just chasing that personality. You know? Sometimes it just becomes overwhelming. I think I see even the kitchen and the management I run within my kitchen or the restaurant, I always connect it to football. I always believe, you know, you scout a talent in the kitchen also, you nurture it, you try to make him as many things as possible, grow more around the environment, give him pressure, sometimes not. So for me, everything around myself, I see it from a football eye in terms of how I manage as a manager, for example, how I manage as a coach, for example, or as a player, for example. So I think like how this podcast makes a greater value is that at the same time you've got people in who of course are ringing bells in and around the city, but of course it's all about the chefs who are upcoming and who just needs a bit of confidence, who just needs a bit of spotlight on them. Even with the Dubai Chefs Collective, I think it's a great initiative. Everybody feels equal in that group. There's no celebrity chef in that group. There is no superpower, big international chef in the group. Everybody's treated equally. Everybody's is warm enough to welcome everyone. Everybody is congratulate. You know, they celebrate together as a group of chefs. So I think the city needs more of that. For example, I see Soleiman and from Moonrise. His journey has also been incredible. He's young. I think we as a chefs supportive collective should support a talent like him. And I am sure that if the day he gets more support, he's just going to give you more confidence in cooking, and you know, the result is something's going to be unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, the other question I wanted to ask you is, throughout all of your years of cooking, especially your formative years when you were much younger, was there any day or any service you remember in your mind where you were like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be a chef anymore?
I think only at Indian Accent there was an instance, which was, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I told him before, also discussed this issue many times, and it's always with, you know, with responsibility. You should be doing a role with concentration and everything. And there were moments where Chef Manish used to be very aggressive, not aggressive in terms of you know, telling us what should be done in a right way, but I used to remember for a good week or 10 days, every day I was going back home, I was into tears. I was crying, and then he used to call me midnight, you know, saying, whatever happens. Next day we start fresh. Don't repeat this mistake or whatever. And then next day onwards, something other happened, and then again he
Smashed you again.
So at one point of time, it was happening very often, and sometimes you lose your confidence. Also, you start to doubt yourself that whether you are for this thing or not, because you've been making mistakes, very silly mistakes, which can be avoidable, but then maybe you're not connected to what chef was expecting, and the many things. So there was that 1 week, 10 days time where I felt maybe this is not my cup of tea. Maybe there's one moment also which I appeared for a job, and just out of fun, for this thing called Total Sports, and there are a bunch of young people starting this new thing in India about football in general. So they hired me, given me as a job, as a United supporters, as a journalist, to take up Man United supporters in India. Like, I just cover Man United related activities throughout the India. And I remember going with the resignation. You don't realize what you're doing, and I just went with resignation to Chef Manish, saying that maybe I have this job. Maybe I think it's better for me to be a sports journalist and do what I always love to do. And he again said, "Are you crazy? What you're thinking?" And he smashed me into pieces.
Oh my gosh.
And then we still discussed this event. He said, "Imagine if I let you go that day, you could have not become, realize your potential." So, yeah, many times I think there are many moments in generally also. Sometimes whenever you're doing a menu also, you think that, it's not doing well, it's not great. You somehow try to doubt yourself. Is this the only, is how far you can stretch? Sometimes I ask myself, maybe this is the end of my imagination.
Yeah.
Now I'm stuck. Now I've thought of any other idea possible with Indian food. Now I have no ideas. Now I have no conviction left. So sometimes you kind of question yourself, actually, to wake yourself up and just go more. But I think I realized this profession, even going to sleep, sometimes I just sleep happily thinking about a dish, and my menu, how it's going to be, how many regions I'm going to feature in the menu, how many courses, will this dish make sense in this region? Oh, it doesn't have that ingredients, it doesn't make sense. So for me, it's like a fantasy league, and I keep myself busy with this, man.
But throughout all of your career,
Yeah.
what would you say has been your biggest lesson so far?
I think I always say I have never considered myself as a talent, to be honest.
Never.
I always thought that it's probably the hard work, dedication, just me thinking about food 15 hours a day. And sometimes people ask me that how can you come up with such an idea? I say when you think about one thing for like 15 hours every day, of course your mind will start to work in a different way. So for me, I always say that it's hard work. It's the only thing which beats talent every time. So it's the talented people who have to really work hard to make themselves up, and it's the hard workers. They just beat the talent. This is what I felt always. Back in the day, the amount of not just the physical hard work. I think. In terms of a number of hours or coming back home, reading books, it's just not doing 15 hours, 14 hours and then coming back to home and just sleep, Sometimes you come back, study, you study, you make notes, you probably watch documentaries and films which is related to food, and it just, if you are in that zone throughout, I think you'll start to think in a different way.
Wow. Well, look, now what we're going to do, Himanshu, is you're on a foodie podcast.
Yeah.
So first thing I'm going to ask you, and you don't need to name names.
Yeah.
But I want to know whether you have been involved or you have seen. Can you remember your funniest ever kitchen incident?
I would say it's not the kitchen incident. It can be a restaurant incident.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember when I was in Masala Library, and we're talking about 2014. So those days, sanitizers were not that effective, They're not part of our daily scene. And back in the day, the manager of Masala Library, he said, okay, let's make this as what you call it, standard procedure.
Yep.
That we're going to take a bottle of sanitizer to every guest, and we ask them to sanitize their hands before they start their meal, blah blah blah, and it becomes like a protocol thing. It was just happening all the days, all the time, and the bottle of sanitizer was exactly the same as the soap dispenser.
Oh my God.
So someday it just got mixed up in the restaurant, and this guy was very politely went to a guest and said, "Sir, would you like to sanitize your hands before you start?" And this guy, yes, of course. And he started rubbing, and he see foam coming out of it. It's not going away, and it was just so funny. And even the guy couldn't believe what's happening. Even the guest couldn't believe what's happening. And then finally we got him a hot towel or something just to wipe his hands off. So it was a fine dining restaurant, and it was very funny to be around. And I've seen people also in the restaurant. I would not name which restaurant it was, but it was back in India. I've seen like a really fat guy was sitting on the chair, and the chair was just collapsed.
Oh my gosh.
So, and people were very supportive around it. People like cheered for this guy, and the people around the restaurant didn't embarrass him. You know,
fair enough.
Which was quite cool to see. But the next day we had a guest who is one of the most richest families in India. I would not name. Was one of the most richest families in India. Very VIP. I'm saying one of the most, and they're also quite big and huge. And he was sitting in that chair, one of those chairs, and for throughout 2 hours we were just praying to God, please hold it on, man. If this breaks, then probably the restaurant will break too.
Yeah. Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
So we literally sent a guy, to be around that chair
In case
if something happened, just
I like it. Your prep, mise en place. Very good. Who would you say are your top 3 culinary heroes?
I would say Chef Manish is the first one. Of course, would be nothing without him. And the second one I would say is a chef from Lido 84, Chef Riccardo Caminini. We cooked together, and I think he's a great chef. But more than a great chef, he's a great human being. And I see him. If I just become 10% of him in terms of how he sees life, how he sees his profession, he's a different class. I think I regard him close to God, man. I have that kind of affection for him. I've met him 3-4 times already. Has a great aura around him. And it's just that, whenever we do a collaboration also, I realize it when I started to cook with these chefs. I think it's not about learning a recipe or a technique. It's just that when you talk to them and when you see how they see life in general, what are their philosophies, what are their values, I think if you get inspired from those first and then leave everything apart, is something which will grow you more as a chef. I think that's one of the blessings that we are fortunate enough to cook with many chefs now, and I think every chef is so different with their thoughts and philosophy, brilliant in terms of cooking. I think that's very constant, that every chef, most of the chefs which we cooked with internationally, they're brilliant. So we're not doubting anything on that. Forget about doubting. We know that they're brilliant chefs. But what they bring in terms of their mentality, in terms of their approach, is a different class. And I think that's something, if that's what I want to learn from them, because they are experienced people, they've seen more life than me. And I think if I just take those values and culture and influences or philosophies, I think it's a better way to look at them as a source of inspiration than a dish or a recipe. Of course, that can come and go in and out.
And who would be your last one?
I think the last one can be my daughter. I think I felt within studio and within my life in general, my life changed just upside down when I got to know the baby's coming. And everything's changed. So, touch wood. From those days onwards, some people say pandemic was bad. For me, pandemic was amazing. I would say I think people in Dubai has so much of opportunity. I think the city was so much organized in terms of everything. I think
It was.
the life changed around those days.
It was.
I think how we accepted people, how the city reacted. And it was from those days, when these chefs internationally, they have nothing to do, they have nowhere to travel. We asked one of them to come to Dubai. They said yes because they want an escape. And that's how it started, from those days. Otherwise, people would come in Dubai, all these big chefs were not really coming to Dubai to cook. Of course, they can come in for their vacation and stuff like that. But for me, I think everything changed around from the existence of my daughter. Even she was before she was born, I can feel the change in my life. I can feel how even calm I have become in the kitchen. I told you I used to be like a mad dog, but how calm I've become in the kitchen also. So I think.
Okay. And looking back, if you could, and you were to have a deep, meaningful conversation, what advice would you give to a 16-year-old Himanshu?
I would say just be yourself, man. I want this guy to have done, experience everything what I have experienced. So I would not tell him that, look out for this, don't do this. I want him to fail. I want him to see whatever I've seen. I want him to feel whatever I've felt, which is most of the time bad than good. And I've always surrounded around people who were geniuses in terms of, my friends. One of them became a doctor, one of them is an engineer, one of them is a teacher. So I was probably the least intelligent one among those. So I would say that, if you have to be harsh on yourself, be harsh on yourself. I just want to let him live what I've lived. So I would not give him any advice. I would say, you face it on the chin and just keep the ball moving. Just don't lose hope, which I'm sure 16-year-old Himanshu would not even lose hope. I think he'll just keep on rolling.
What would be, or what has been, this is a toughie for you, because it's a toughie for me. What's been the one meal of a lifetime that blew you away?
Yet to come, I think.
Yet to come?
But closest to that one is at a restaurant called Diverexo. In Spain, Chef David Mones. He was one of the chefs from a very long time. I was literally used to drool over his dishes and always used to imagine that whether I'm going to get a chance to go and eat at his restaurant, but which I did last year, and it was amazing. It was, I always believe that there's no chef who prepares bad food intentionally. I'm saying chefs in general. That's why even for all the journalists and critics I meet, I always tell them to leave their comments as open-ended. Open for discussion. It shouldn't be a verdict. No chefs wants to prepare bad food. It's just that the circumstances, situation, whatever reasons, the dish has came out in that way. But the other thing which I'm really was amazed to see in his restaurant is the level of confidence he works with. The first dish which we receive in the menu is a pigeon dish, hot and cold. And the guest who was sitting with me told me that this was his main dish last menu. So imagine, first of all, showing pigeon. And I was eating on that day where there were at least 50 other Michelin star, world's 50 best chefs were eating. So it was a very intense room at that day, and serving them the first dish as a pigeon dish, which is in two ways, hot and cold. And how much pride chefs take in cooking pigeon. For them, it's a way to showcase your art. I think it takes a lot of confidence, man. Even if I become a big chef, I would think at least 5 times to to serve that dish. For me, it says lot about the confidence. And then you expect a meal like that,
Of course.
The first dish is opened like this in front of your eyes, and there were few dishes which were like head dropped. My head dropped, and whenever my head drops, it just, you've tasted something which is for the first time you've experienced those flavors.
Amazing.
So I think there are many head drops
On the way.
and and the confidence with which I got certain dishes were like really mind-boggling, man. Like, and he eventually, after Minus 50 Best, he came to eat in
Yeah.
the studio, which was the moment for me. I was like very nervous, man.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So for any young budding chef or somebody who wants to become a chef,
Yeah.
what would be your biggest piece of advice for them?
I would say, and that used to be my philosophy back in the day. And I come from India, which is land of many people, and there can be 100,000 Indian chefs coming out of India, for example, a generic number. I just don't want to be 100,001 doing the same thing. So probably a lot of chefs would give me a beating on this whenever I say it, that of course you should do your basics. You should do your basic. But being an Indian chef, you know the basics already, man. You've seen Indian food being cooked at your house. You've eaten Indian food enough. So if a guy who is not a chef also can cook an Indian meal at his home, and tasty also, tasty, decent. Of course, it will not be very imaginative, but tasty. But this is what I'm saying, that being an Indian chef, if you're pursuing your career cooking Indian food, just don't follow the trail and do the same things what most of the chefs would do. Try to find a secret behind this dish or how it's being done. I am saying that don't go too much into detail. For me, I always say that when I see a dish, a traditional Indian dish, and I always want to see that dish from distance. Because if I know the dish too closely, I would just want to do that dish like that. So if I know the dish, for example, 50%, I think 50% I let my head complete that dish in terms of anything, in terms of ingredients or flavors. To have my own impression on that dish, it's very important for me to not know that dish throughout. So for me, I always say ignorance is a bliss. So if you want to be successful being an Indian chef, invest more time in a direction which will make you stand out. It can be any direction, For me, I think I have a creative head. This is what I feel about myself. I see things differently. For me, seeing cookbooks, cookbooks are of different value. For me, of course, there are great stories. There is great inspiration, great recipes. But for me, my inspiration comes from the visual pictures in the book. Because every picture I see and every book I see, after every 3 months, every picture is going to give me a different sense of direction.
Mm-hmm.
My mind perceives a picture in a different way, for example, and it just keeps on changing as much I see more things, gain more experience, travel more. And I come back and I see a book again, my mind would perceive an ingredient or a dish, how it's being looked in a different way.
Fantastic.
So this is what my advice for an Indian chef. Of course, every one of the Indian people know basics of Indian food. Everybody know what is dhania powder, coriander powder, stuff like that. Everybody know basic tempering, how to do it. And of course, when you spend enough time in the kitchen, you will eventually learn most of it. But don't invest your time so much on just learning more about, should I say Indian food or no? But I'm saying just don't get too much into detail, Don't be a perfectionist.
Be curious.
Be curious, open yourself. India has so much to offer. If you go by the book, if you go by what many other restaurants are doing, it's just dominantly North Indian food, first of all. And it's just that same dishes are being repetitive again and
over
again.
and over and over.
Why don't you bring something from some other part of the world and, have your own impression on it? I think there is nothing left to be invented, I would say. So it's all. This is what I believe in terms of cooking world.
Yeah.
Maybe not in my lifetime. Maybe after that, but you have to discover, and the discovery is very important. Discover, and then you can reimagine the discovery in your own way, or have your own impression on it, and because that makes it completely different.
Yeah.
You know, if you have your own biggest say on the dish, it just makes it completely different.
Fantastic advice.
Yeah.
If people wanted to find you, see you, get hold of you through social media, how can they do that?
I think Instagram is the best. Is the best bet for me.
So it would be through Himanshu Saini.
Chef Himanshu Saini.
Perfect. I'll put that on all of the show notes.
Yeah.
So Himanshu, look, the conversation has been incredible. Really, I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much.
amazing to have you on here.
Thank you so much.
The very best of luck for the future, which I know is shining bright. The best of luck to the team, for you, for your family.
Yeah.
And really, it's been an absolute honor to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. But I just want to also say that what you're doing is amazing. I know sometimes, of course, as a friend, I know you, that you so want to be part of the scene. I know that you so want to be running your own space, but it just takes so much of guts to do what you're doing, support what you're doing. There are many things which I always want to do, but never really had power to pull it off. But hats off to you. This is why I want to congratulate you. This is the 4th season of Chef JKP Podcast. It's going great, and I think even Dubai Chefs Collective is a great initiative. So hands down, I bow you also, and I wish you a lot of success. You know, whatever you're doing, this has a bigger outcome. I must tell you, you will get to see a much bigger picture, because what you're giving to many chefs like us, or many industry people, many chefs in Dubai Chefs Collective, you're going to get it back in a very big way. So my best wishes to you, man.
Thank you so much.